As consultants, we're always looking for great books to read. You ask us a lot of questions and a lot of great book recommendations, and today we're happy to share just what we're reading. In today's episode, we highlight our favorite evaluation, leadership, and development books. We can learn a lot from reading and researching, especially as leaders. There's some great books out there that help us strengthen our skills, stay informed of practices in our field, and help us overcome challenges as leaders of mission-based organizations. It is our hope that you find some value in the books that we're reading and sharing with you today. Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds, a 30-minute conversation with leaders of mission-based organizations. If you're just joining us, let us know where you're from, and if you've got an idea for a great book, be sure to pop it in the chat. My name is Rebecca Tuttle. I'm the founder and creator of Grant Right Now and Grant Writing for Good. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Cynthia Rojas, to the show today. Good morning, Cynthia.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you? Hi, Facebook. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about this show.
I know it's going to be fun.
It is. Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia Rojas. I am the founder and principal of To Your Growth.
Let's welcome Peta, our other co-host to the show, Peta Blakely. Good morning, Peta. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Terrific. Are you excited? You as excited as we are?
I have such a hard time picking my books. Yes, I'm super excited. My name is Peta Blakely. I'm the founder and principal of Blakely Consulting, and I help mission-based organizations measure and maximize their impact. And I want to say good morning to Hayat from Jordan. Great to see you.
Hi, Hayat. Thank you for joining us. Well, this show was inspired by Peta and questions we get from our viewers. So, Peta, you want to talk about what people ask?
Yeah, so sometimes people reach out to us either on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, and ask us questions about our practices. And one of the really great questions that we got is, what do you read and what books influence your practice? So I thought, what a great opportunity to talk about some of the books that we use. And I in particular have picked the two that I reach for the most and that I'm constantly bringing up to my desk.
Yeah. We also share a lot of books, and I mean, before we had the show, we had a mastermind group, which is a group of people who share resources and share information with the idea of becoming better at what you do. And so in our mastermind group, we used to talk about books, and we have purchased a lot of the books that we have
shared with each other.
Yeah.
I know, I can't wait. One of the books that Peta recommended on evaluation is coming on the 13th of October. I can't wait to read it. And I was like, don't pick that one today because I don't want it to be spoiled.
And I often have, coffee dates, or nowadays, virtual coffee dates on Zoom with people who are just getting started in evaluation, or people who are interested in starting their own consulting practices.
Yeah.
And I'm always recommending to them books and other resources to look at. So
yeah, no, you're really good about that. And you're also really good with new entrepreneurs and with consultants trying to find their way. It's how I met you.
Right, that's how we met.
Yeah.
You want to start us off then, Peta? What do you got for books today?
Okay, I couldn't. There were too many good books, so I narrowed it down to the two that I reach for the most frequently. And this one, Effective Data Visualization by Stephanie Evergreen. It's a classic. I think everyone. Probably everyone who goes to the American Evaluation Association conference is aware of Stephanie Evergreen's work. This is a really great how-to that helps you pick the right chart or data visualization for the story that you're trying to tell. Ooh, isn't that great? And then gives you step-by-step instructions to make them. And using only Excel, no fancy tools. The second, should I talk about a second or should we?
Oh no, I want to talk about data viz for a minute.
Okay, all right.
Because it's becoming, it may have been a thing forever, but I think part of you bringing, introducing me to this idea that there are actual books on how to make graphs and data visualization a lot more appealing that I never knew about. I've spent so much time trying to perfect the bar chart in a way that's appealing. I've studied color theory and all that good stuff. But I always got stuck with just the basics. But now, like, there are data viz groups, and you don't have to just be a data person. So tell us a little bit about the purpose of data viz, because I think it's interesting.
So I think one of the reasons that there's so much attention on data visualization right now is because we can, right? Because the technology means that everybody can be doing data visualization all the time.
Yeah.
Although, one of the books that I didn't pick for today, but I will definitely talk about on another day, is the collection on the shelf behind me of W.E.B. Du Bois's data visualizations, prepared in 1900 with no computers, right? And I think what we learned from that is sort of like we talked about with Chris last week. It's not about the technology. It's about being clear about the story that you want to tell and having that come through. And particularly, I think that readers, people who are not in the data field, are getting more and more accustomed to data visualizations. We see it online, and we see it in the print media, and people are learning to read. You don't realize that reading charts is a form of literacy, but
that's important.
And that is developing, and people are looking at it. And Hyatt says that she took Stephanie Evergreen's course last year. And
so there's a course.
Very, very useful.
And I just want to say that this is why last week we were so excited to have Chris Leslie on our show, because he uses cartoons for data visualization. And that was just a whole different method. And it's just awesome. It's awesome because data is so important. And so many of us fear it, but it's so important to
And he helped us remember that the fancy visualizations can't compensate for bad data.
Right.
An unclear story, and that worse, they can imply a level of precision that really isn't there. And I think, there's a temptation to take kind of muddy data and make a great visualization and then think that they compensate. And maybe they don't. Maybe we need more ways of communicating ambiguity in our data visualization.
That's interesting, Peta, because in grant writing, especially when we're writing state or federal contracts, you really need to present your data accurately and in a way that is easy to comprehend and translate, really, and not skewed. Yep. And so when we have these fancy graphs or these fancy presentations, but the data is weak within it, it can actually destroy our chances of securing that funding. And a couple of things come to mind as you're describing, is that data that looks good still has to be accurate and true.
And there's so many ways your data can look good, but still be lying, right? Or be designed in ways that are really misleading, right? And there are some definite bad practices.
I got that book because of you.
It's the one that I'm most often pulling out,
Yes.
How do we do this?
Better be careful, or we're going to crash Amazon's website today.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I gotta tell people, one of the best moments that I got to experience Rebecca's joy was that one day she had ordered all these books.
Oh, yeah.
And then she still had them on her desk, and she showed us. And she went through them one by one. And I mean, Rebecca is usually a really happy person. But I gotta tell you, the joy coming out of her.
It was Christmas. It was Rebecca Christmas.
Yeah, I'm kind of a geek. It's okay.
I love it.
There's not. It's efficient to buy Kindle books, but nothing matches an actual stack of real world, real life books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well, I
true.
like to write in the margins and highlight, and then I can't always read on a screen. So I
Yeah.
like to take notes. And I'll give you guys a secret. One of the things that I do when I'm reading books, especially on business, is if they give you a theme or an idea about their education around that business, I relate it directly to my business and say, how can I apply what I'm learning in this book directly to grant writing? And then I'll put it in the margin. Now you know all my secrets.
Wow,
So that I
that's
can apply it. Yeah, so I can apply that skill.
one of the things I'm starting to do, because I can't keep it all in my head and I read a lot of articles, I read a lot of books. I'm keeping a journal of books and like major points because I just can't keep it together. And I start to save articles. And you know what that means? I have piles of paper, just articles on my desk that have been read, but I don't know what to do with them. And so I just bought a journal and I'm going to start to journal just really big highlights of
That's
stuff.
a great idea.
Yeah.
I think, learning management is such an interesting topic.
I've never heard of that term. I love that.
Yeah. We
LMS
could do,
systems, right?
and I have a guest in mind. We could
Oh,
do an
yeah,
entire show on how you keep track of the stuff that you've read and how you share it with other people in your organization.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So what are you recommending for books, Cynthia?
Well, like Peter, I have two, but there is, and so if we don't get to the second one, that's okay. But the first one, I read a lot of books about leadership, which is a lot, about relationships, and also change management because it's a topic that I am really interested in. I recently became really interested in team dynamics because that's been a really as we move as into this world where we have to do things in teams and not in isolation. And how do you do that working remotely has been a really big interest of mine. But in my coaching practice, this is a book that I usually gift to my clients, and it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And it's an amazing, amazing book for people who struggle with who they are as a person and who they need to be as a leader. Sometimes those two are not aligned. And so, how do we align it in a way that makes you a great leader, even if that's not how you practice in your relationships? So, let me give you an example. One of the principles that Dale talks about is being genuinely interested in other people. And as leaders, right, we need to remember that we have the capacity to make people feel important. And to do that, it means to really pause and be present when you're talking to people, whether it's one of your staff, whether it's a peer, whether it's a potential partner, really listen and be present with that person. Nobody likes a person who they're trying to converse with and they're thinking about something else, right? Or they're looking, right? I mean, that drives me nuts. It's like
Looking for somebody more interesting than you.
yeah, keep that. And so that goes a long way. And here also is this idea of listening, right, as a really important principle. But another thing he talks about, so he talks about being genuinely interested in being a good listener, but also making other people feel important and doing it sincerely. And one of the ways to do that is ask people about themselves. People ask me all the time, I hate networking events. I never know what to talk about. Well, guess what? I don't either. But I know how to ask about you. What do you do? And then I know how to ask follow-up questions. And next thing you know, I've walked away and had a whole conversation and that person talked about themselves. And they think I'm the best because people love to talk about themselves. But we don't really ask people about themselves enough. So if you want to make someone feel important and you want to practice your listening, ask somebody something about them and be genuinely interested in. It's a great leadership skill. It really, really is. So I'm going to pause there because I could talk forever. But it's a really great book. And you don't have to get it just because you're a leader. You could get it because I think it's a great skill as a human being. Yeah.
Well, I read that book in college, in undergrad and graduate school. It's a great book.
Yeah.
And as you're describing the book, you're demonstrating exactly what you're saying. I know just in knowing you, Cynthia, you're so eloquent and kind, and you really do listen intentionally, and it definitely comes through. It's really a pleasure.
Yeah. I also have a fundamental belief that we are all here for an extraordinary purpose, right? That we're all important, and trying to explore that with someone is something that fascinates me. I love people, and I love to learn about people, and I'm curious about all things regarding people. And so it's helped me. It's helped me through the years. And I have to tell you, I used to be really shy and really introverted. So even if you're introverted and shy and you're thinking, oh my God, I can't talk to anybody, don't worry about it. Just ask them how they're doing. Ask them something about themselves. I do it all the time.
You know, when you go to networking events and everyone's kind of standing against the wall, not really sure, I used to be extremely shy myself, and I don't know what happened, but I'm not really that way anymore.
No, not really.
But ask my parents, I was so shy. I was afraid of my own shadow shy. It was crazy. So anyway, I think once I graduated college, I thought, I'm going to take this employment thing by the horns and just go for it,
Yeah.
And I think, though, people are just looking for that one person in the room to kind of get the conversation going, to lead that. And that's part of being a leader, as you're saying, right? And so I think people appreciate that as long as you come at it as you're describing, and not, oh, I'm here, I know everything, come with me in this networking event, but rather, tell me about your business. Tell me what brought you here today. This is what I hope to get out of it. What are you looking for? So just leading with questions and interest. You're right. It's great.
Yeah.
So Rebecca, what is your book?
Ooh, this is one of my favorites. I'm so excited. This is called The One Thing, and it's actually by Gary Keller. He is the Keller Williams real estate founder. And I came across this book because I like to go to the back of a lot of books that I read and their recommended books to follow up with, and that's how I found it. But he talks a lot about the one thing that you could do if everything else was of less importance, that you could really get done today that would achieve you extraordinary results. Yeah, I picked this book because it's so applicable to what's going on right now. It helps you dial down stress, overcome that feeling of overwhelm, revive your energy, and then keep you on track. And in grant writing, especially, we can get really overwhelmed with how much money we have to raise, how many grants we have to submit. And while we're submitting and writing, we're also managing them, closing them out with reports. So it can get really overwhelming. So I'm always on the hunt for organization. And in this book, there are a couple of pieces that I just found pretty remarkable. He actually says that out of desperation, he went as small as he possibly could. And he said that after these experiences, he looked back at his success and failures and discovered an interesting pattern, that where he had huge success, he had narrowed his concentration down into one thing. And I find that really interesting because the best written grants are the ones that are clear and succinct and really follow a clear, seamless narrative. So I love this book. And he also says that proof of that one thing is everywhere. And you just have to look closely and you're always going to find it. He also talks about success versus to do. So instead of a to-do list, which is flooded with 50,000 items, you have to focus on a success list and only focus on the things on that list that are going to bring you extraordinary results, and purposefully tailor all of your activities around achieving those results. So if it isn't a list built around success, then that's not where it's going to take you. So how could you argue with that, right?
Oh,
Fantastic.
That's really. I had a question about the one thing. This concept of focusing. It's another great leadership skill. it's great with new leaders. So if you're coming in, and if we do the show again, there is another book I will be recommending for very new leaders. It's called Hit the Ground Running. But for new leaders, it's important that your messaging is clear when you come on board, so people can begin to feel you out. But if you don't have clear messaging from the very beginning, in a focal area, and it doesn't mean that you ignore everything else, but if that's not clear, then the staff spend more time trying to figure you out, and that just becomes wasted time. So I'm loving the one thing concept there. Rebecca, we are getting a lot of traction
Oh,
and comments, but we missed a couple of Hyatt and Myra have asked about a previous book that we talked about, and they were probably referring to the one that Peter was talking about. So we will put that up. If that's the Data Viz one.
we could also put the book titles in the comments.
Yeah, we'll put the book titles
Why
in the
don't we do
comments.
that?
That's
Peter,
a great idea.
And you had a second book, right? Peter, would you like to talk about that? I think we have enough time.
Sure. This one is such fun, and it's a beautiful book. It's called Universal Methods of Design by Martin and Hannington. And it's a gorgeous book. It's a well-designed book. And it's not just about design. It's actually about guiding groups to tackle problems and various ways of conducting research. And so I have pulled this out as a guide for data collection methods. They cover simple things like interviews and focus groups. They also cover different ways of working with groups around sorting and organizing their thinking. And a lot of them are applicable to designing something, but evaluation is sort of a design process, right? Where you're collecting information on something in order to help it be better. So this is a fantastic book and another one that I pull out a lot before meetings.
You know, Peter, what I have come to love and respect about you is how you really look for the practical and the easy. You are a PhD and you do a lot of research. You have gone to the best universities, and yet you really focus on making sure that people understand your concepts and things that you're talking about, data, and your books have been a pleasure to read. The books you've recommended, we are writing a book. But we haven't finished it yet.
Coming soon.
Yes, it's coming soon. But I really applaud you for that, because you can get complicated. And you choose not to. And so thank you for that. That's awesome. Thanks. Do we want to go to comments? Wow.
Yeah, I'm just posting the book titles.
Yeah, Hyatt listed some really good books.
Yeah. Do you know those books? The one by Patton?
I do.
Yep. He is an evaluator.
Patton is kind of a giant in the field. And I have a copy of Evaluation Failures on the shelf behind me. Thought about sharing it today. So,
cool. Limitless.
Yeah, I don't know Limitless. I will look.
I wonder what that's about. That'll be a good one. Maybe in our next show on books, we will invite. That's what we'll do. We'll promote the show and see if people want to come on and talk about it. Awaken the Giant Within. So Tony Robbins is a really big coach, and he talks a lot about leadership, and very, very well known. And that must be an amazing book. I have not heard of it, but I do know who Tony Robbins is. So that must be amazing. Yeah.
So great. This is so great. We just do this show and then people tell us what to read.
Yeah.
What a great way of getting book recommendations.
Yeah. And then
I have 2 other books I recommend.
Myra, many people listen to reply or respond. Oh, she's talking about the Dale Carnegie book that we just talked about. When actually we need to listen for information and stay interested in the conversation. Yes. And Dale does talk about that. he really emphasizes that. So thank you, Myra. Thank you, Myra. Tell us what books you love and you often recommend.
Such an important research practice. I think the big mistake beginning researchers make is listening to respond or listening to write up the report instead of listening to listen and understand, right?
Yeah.
And then checking and rechecking our understanding. So that book even has applications for research and evaluation.
Yeah.
This is great. We can start a book club. So I'm an author. I actually have 2 books.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, honestly,
Yes, you do. You are the only author in this group so far until we become authors. Tell us about your books, Rebecca.
Sure. So the first one is a grant writing handbook, and then I've written 2 updated versions since, and I use that as my course curriculum. But my very first jumping off point for business was actually my gluten-free element of my business, because I've had celiac my whole life. So I wrote a book called The Story of My Gluten-Free Cookbook. No chicken, no turkey, no gluten, oh my. My husband is allergic to chicken and turkey, and I can't eat gluten, so we are a match made in heaven. So I call it my humorous feat for eliminating wheat. And
That's awesome.
yeah, so that's actually how I started my business, was in the gluten-free space. And then I thought, what else am I good at? Oh, fundraising and development. So I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Now, Cynthia, you have a workshop coming up, correct? You wanted to talk about?
I do, but I just want to make, and so I know we're running out of time. We always run out of time, but when I first met you, Rebecca, was when I learned we went to a coffee shop in Hartford, a beautiful, beautiful part of the city, beautiful coffee shop. And you told me you told me the story of how you became an author and how at that time there was nothing gluten-free. Right. And you really had to learn it for yourself. And then you wanted to help other people. And I've always so admired that about you.
Oh.
And what's even more admirable is to pause and take the time to write, because we all have ideas. We all do. We've all been trying to write a book together. And so it gets pushed to the side when we're doing other things. We just finished a conference yesterday, which was very successful. I'm doing a workshop next week and a couple of more coming in November. And so we're really busy, but you have nailed it in finding the time to do it. So I've always admired that about you.
Oh, thank you so much. A funny story. When I wrote my book, the first person who wanted to buy it, because it's sort of my autobiography, and when the first person wanted to buy it, I had a lot of trouble letting it go. Not because I didn't think it was informational, because it's actually a fun read and then it's educational, but I was afraid of the criticism that I might get from people. And that was the hardest thing for me to get over, becoming an author. But I'm glad I did, and it sells all over the country just by word of mouth. So thank you for saying that, Cynthia. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I am doing a workshop. Thank you for mentioning it. I wanted to let people know it's on October 21st from 9:30 to 11 a.m. And it's with the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. It is free and the website is there. You can register, but it is about keeping remote staff motivated when everything has changed. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the science of motivation. One of the books I also had for this show, and I'll bring it up in another show, is about the first chapter is dedicated to the neuroscience of motivation, which I hope to make fun and interesting. The book does a great job. I love books that tell a story versus just talk about information, right? And so the book is called Smarter, Faster, Better, and it's the transformative power of real productivity. But the first chapter talks about where our motivation comes from. And this is really important because if it's biological, it means we could do something to move it forward. And so understanding that for leaders, I think my hope is that it helps them as we continue to be remote and still work on motivating our staff. So thank you for mentioning that workshop. I hope to see people there.
I'm going to sign up. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Great opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah. I put the information in the comments if anyone wants to follow up and register.
That's awesome. Well, once again, we are running out. I tell you, we could talk forever. I'm not sure people will listen, but we could talk forever.
Yeah, we will, but
Right.
they have to go back to work.
I know, it's Friday.
Yeah.
This was fantastic. I think we should have some of our viewers come on, maybe talk about some books that they are passionate about, that they found success with. That would be a fun episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you'd like to do that, write it in the comments. And if you have other questions for us that you would like us to take on this program, put it in the comments.
Yeah, we get all kinds of questions, including, am I really drinking coffee? We're not ready to tell.
No. Well, it's past 10 o'clock when we do our show. So, if there's something else in there, who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're getting fresh. So we're going to sign off, everyone.
Have a great weekend,
Thank you
everybody.
so much.
Bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.